The Chiefs' second preseason game is in the books, and it means a lot for the takeaways of what this 53-man roster is going to look like, who rose, who fell, and who might be out of a job today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. This is Locked On Chiefs, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free. We're brought to you today by BetOnline. It's the easiest place to get your money out there on the line and covering you for all the props, odds, lines, and games this season. It's BetOnline where the game starts. We're going to get into who rose, who fell, who's looking for a job, or who did not secure their own this weekend against the Washington Commanders and all the fallout therefrom. We're going to get into it. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, RGR Football, as well as NFL33.com.
And I'm Chris Clark, founder of Chiefs Corner. You can find me over at Chiefs Corner. I did a piece talking about actually who I thought you should watch in this game. We can talk about that here in a little bit. Going to be doing a lot more writing now that the season is just about here over at Chiefs Corner, so be sure to check that out. Lots to talk about when we look at this game and how it ended up. Obviously, good thing Kansas City got a win. Doesn't really matter. It's a preseason, but Baltimore's trying to go for like the 22 in a row now, so some teams care.
I'm not sure why, but okay, more power to you.
Right.
It's not translating into divisional wins or divisional championships. So, hey, I don't know. You got to have your priorities.
I thought it was kind of funny yesterday watching that game and them talking about how if it was a normal game or if it was like if it was earlier in the preseason game, maybe they would have gone for it at fourth down in the fourth quarter. But because it was so close, they didn't want to give the ball back. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. Yeah. Although I really doubt that they would have been going for a field goal if they would have got the ball back, because I don't think they want to play in overtime in preseason either.
No, there are very few things that are worse than that. In the end, the Chiefs didn't need it, and that's really what's important. So we got to break it down. The number one offense looks smooth as can be. I think those fans that called it mediocre, I think you're a little spoiled as to what you're looking. Is it postseason form? No. But it's smooth and it's moving and you're getting push at times from the offensive line. Not all the time. We should talk about that. But I think you have a number of pass catchers that are doing their job, that are getting out and making this offense transformable from what it was before with Tyreek Hill. And that's at the end of the day, what you have to do is job one.
Yeah, and the one thing I would argue is that you're in a position now where you have a fifth wide receiver, I think, that you could actually legitimately say could actually step in and play and actually be productive in the NFL. Mm-hmm. I think they found something to Watson. I'm not going to say he's going to be a star, but I think they found something where he can actually be productive in this offense and help.
Yeah, because, I mean, nobody stays healthy forever. I mean, clearly he got some of his opportunity yesterday because Juju's hurt. It's going to happen. Juju will miss a game here or there, right? And so will Hardman, and so will MVS. Everybody will miss some. That's what having a wide receiver core, meaning CORPS, versus a wide receiver and four other dudes that run routes. That's the difference here.
That sounds familiar from years past.
So
it's kind of funny because you look at a guy like Demarcus Robinson, who was here for 4 years, and he's already out with the Raiders.
Yeah. I mean, I tried to equate this on RGR, and folks, if you like the Rogue Nation stuff, you can go grab that in the store. I just want to put that shameless plug out there because I really like this one. I think that's really what it comes down to is everybody has chemistry. Chemistry helps you. And different guys of the same skill set from one team to another can sometimes blossom, like I think we've seen Justin Watson do in coming to play with first Michelle and now Mahomes, but in this system. And sometimes it can send you down the rabbit hole like it seems to have done for Demarcus Robinson, where you had all the extracurricular, all the broken plays, all the scramble type stuff with Mahomes. Now when you have to deal with Derek Carr, you can't get anything done.
Yeah. And now he's out of a job. Well, I mean, I guess he's with the Baltimore Ravens now, so we'll see how well that works out for him. But, man, you look at this receiving core, as you said, CORPS, which is a little bit different. And I think that you have to come away pretty impressed. MVS and Mahomes are still trying to get on the same page. We haven't, unfortunately, really seen much from Juju yet. And I don't know that we'll see him next week. It sounds like he could practice this week, but I don't know how that's going to work out. We'll just have to see how that goes. But you know what you already have in Hardman, and you're starting to see what you have in Sky Moore, even though he didn't really do anything this week. But now you're seeing that Justin Watson can step in and produce if he has to.
Yeah.
That's encouraging.
And I think the bigger encouraging thing for me is that if you really need a wide receiver in the red zone, you have a second tight end that can get it done in Jody Fortson.
Yeah. And Fortson and Mahomes are obviously on the same page as well, because the second TD was the scramble drill. Right. That was Fortson seeing, okay, my QB is going this direction. What can I do to try to get open? And Mahomes made a great throw into a tight window, and Fortson was able to come down with it and get both feet down. That's one thing that is impressing me about that guy is he is doing the small things.
Well, and somebody had, I think it was I can't say for certain. I thought it was Watson, but maybe it wasn't. Somebody had an interesting quote like, most times when the quarterback starts to scramble, you run the same direction he is. Well, I'm starting to learn that I don't need to do that. I need to run away from where he's going. I found that really entertaining because we forget sometimes just how weird it is to play with Mahomes versus every other quarterback.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I'm sure that was probably Watson saying that, because I'm thinking about that throw back across Mahomes' body, which was absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. So you look at how this team played overall, you look at the first string, you look at the second string. I think you have to be encouraged by it with the way the offensive line played for the most part. Washington does have a good defensive line. They are going to be a tough group this year. I'm not going to say they're going to be the top unit in the NFL, but they are going to be very good. And Kansas City gave Mahomes just about all the time he ever wanted to throw the ball.
Yeah, I mean, Dietrich Weiss was out there. I'm trying to look. Payne did play. It was 22 snaps. Allen played. It was 22 snaps. So they clearly had their front end, and they are a good defensive front. But there were times when the offensive line got pushed, and there were times there wasn't. I think we need to dig into that a little deeper, because I'm not sure if I'm ready to put money on, is Clyde going to be a 1,000-yard rusher? Or are the Chiefs going to have one? That's probably the bigger question. But if I was going to put money down on that, I would do it at BetOnline, because it's the fastest, easiest way for you to check all the information you have, get all the extras that betting requires in terms of odds, lines, games. All the sports are included. I don't know why you'd care, but that's okay. You can bet things other than NFL, but we're here for the NFL piece. It continues to be the top online spot for you to get all your wagering information and get your money out there into the fray and on the line. The Scores, the podcast, those are all the extras that help you keep covered so you know what's going on. You can get there from any mobile device. It's super easy. It's BetOnline, where the game starts. So that brings me to the offensive line, because I think a lot of folks are taking a look at the running back position, and even Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid have had comments this week, even following the game, that it's not that the offensive line isn't getting some push. They did get some. It wasn't great. It wasn't consistent. I'll give them that. But it's the running backs that are not exploiting what's there effectively. They spoke about the patience for Isaiah Pacheco, a guy that got a lot of snaps, but not as much as you would normally think for a rookie in the preseason. And along with Clyde, looks to be like the 1-2 punch that they're counting on. I still feel like McKinnon's got to be in a specified third down kind of role at the end of the day.
No, I agree with that completely. And I think that the bigger thing that you look at is, what's that mean for the other guys on this roster? Derek Gore came in the first half. Ronald Jones didn't get a first half snap. Yeah. And he didn't play much in the second half either. He got 9 snaps total, I think, is what the game book says. Mm-hmm. That is not in a position where you would expect him to be. He came in signing a 1-year deal worth $1.5 million with $750,000 guaranteed. I think that there's a realistic possibility he's not on this roster come first game.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more real, because not only did Derek Gore outsnap him 2-1, but Fleet Davis outsnapped him as well. And there's no reason for that. If you are a veteran and you just need to play into shape, or if you're a veteran and you're just trying to learn this, there's no reason to get outsnapped by these guys. So I agree. Well, what I thought was a guy that would make the top 4, I don't think he does at this point.
I somewhat disagree on the outsnapping thing, because that wouldn't shock me for a guy of his caliber, mainly because in games like this, you're playing the 3rd and 4th stringers, and I would not expect him to be a 3rd and 4th stringer. So I would expect that maybe those running backs get more snaps, and that makes sense to me. But it was the way he got snaps, when he got snaps, that really says to me he's not going to be on this roster, not even playing with the first string unit, not even playing really with the second string units that much, not even going into the first half at all, says a lot about where Ronald Jones is on this roster. Pacheco got snaps. And the other thing that this says to me is that you're not trying to get him used to this offense. You're not trying to get him involved in this offense. Right. If you wanted him involved in this offense, you would have done it. And I just don't see him being here anymore. And that's surprising to me.
Yeah, that's my thought as well. And it is like what I was trying to say is that if you were trying to get into the rhythm, if you were trying to learn, you would play more. And exactly what you're saying. So I think we're both on the same page of where he exists now. Very different than what I felt in OTAs. So we'll see how that turns out. Is there still time to turn around? It's getting down to the wire. It's not completely out of the picture.
No, but I think the thing that's crazy to me is that Gore had such a horrible game one. And to watch him still come in and be seemingly above Jones is surprising.
Yeah.
I mean, a fumble and drop passes, Gore did not play well. But they know what they have in him. They know what he can do. He did it last year, and we know Brett Veach really likes Derek Gore. And I think that that's actually a good scenario for Kansas City because I think Derek Gore can give them just about what Ronald Jones can.
And that should be enough with all the other weapons. I think tight end has become clearer for me. If Blake Bell makes it back and is healthy, he should be the guy that they keep because they like to keep him with the sneaks and the couple of things that he can do and a little bit more blocking. But clearly Jody Fortson's the two. And Noah Gray actually has made a couple of decent games back-to-back. Not a lot of targets, but some decent plays in both. So I do feel like they have the depth that we had originally thought that they had is going to materialize on the 53.
Yeah, and you saw Gray make a good adjustment on a ball on a 3-yard pass down the left sideline. And I thought that was a great adjustment by him to come back and get the ball. Obviously, it wasn't a great throw by Mahomes, but the guy came back, got the ball, made the reception, and made a huge gain with it. So I think that's all you can really ask for Noah Gray at this point. I do like what I've seen from him. The thing that surprised me, and really what I want to talk about for a second, is Jody Fortson still getting snaps with the fours in the fourth quarter at the end of the game in the preseason.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think he is this team's number 2 tight end. Did it surprise you that he played then?
It did, especially the two plays that I noticed. He came in and he was blocking. So maybe that's because that's a point of emphasis that they need him to block a little bit more if he is going to get those second tight end snaps. It also worries me that I'd have to go back and check. I don't think Bushman played. I like Matt Bushman. I thought he'd be pushing to be that last tight end that could make it, and evidently that's not the case. I'm not sure why that is, but it certainly didn't help him that he wasn't on the field.
Yeah, and you have to wonder if maybe there was an injury or sickness that we don't know about. That's possible with Blake Bell out. It'd be really hard. Franks is going to be out there as much as Franks is going to be out there. The thing I think, and I agree with you, I think that they saw an ability to get Jody snaps at the things that he needs to work on the most to become a more effective tight end. And that's exactly what they had him in there for to try to do, because you can't replicate game snaps regardless.
Absolutely. And I think he's shown, funnily enough, last season in the game he got hurt against the Washington Commanders, and then in this preseason game, that in the past game he understands where he needs to be and how to make himself available to the quarterback. It is those other skill sets that they want to round him out with a little bit. So I think that does feed into where he's at and where he's going. Now, the defense was flying around on the first team as well. We're going to talk about them and where they're going coming up next. You're muted.
You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up a little bit. You lose your license. You lose your job. You total your car. You kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over.
The defense, I think, is even more starkly aware of where it has to go in order to support this team, in order to get wins. The speed that they played with on the first team, I was very happy with, all the way down to Derek Nottie and Turk Wharton coming off the ball well. Turk looks like he's expanding his secondary counter pass rush moves, which is something he desperately needs to take that next step forward. Nadi looked very good disengaging and getting down the line of scrimmage horizontally, supporting everybody else. The linebackers were flying around. Nick Bolton looks like he's mid-season at this point. Willie Gay still talking about having the most interceptions for a linebacker this year. Like those two guys alone, yeah, I mean, if there's anything else to call him, I mean, Willie's got a new nickname, but I mean, that all goes to say that the front seven's ready. And I feel like the back group, the secondary, is coming along.
No, and I do think they are coming along. I just love it because I like seeing guys get on the sideline cheering and cheering on their teammates. And Willie Gay was absolutely that guy yesterday. And I guess that's the guy he is, and that's awesome for him to be that way. I'm really impressed by Nick Bolton. I agree with you. I think he looks mid-season form. He looks to me like he could actually be taking a step forward from where he was his rookie season. And if he can figure out the pass coverage, which he had a huge rep, I believe it was a third down play. He had a huge rep where he broke up a pass. He dropped into a zone. And, yeah, it may not look like much, but that's a huge win for him. That's something that he struggled with as a rookie early on. And if he can continue to do that, and there was a play-action fake involved, if he can continue to do that kind of thing, it's really going to help this defense.
It is. It's critical that he does because I think Willie's shown you the explosiveness he has. I think Lee is serving a purpose as a veteran stability force there, but getting Chanel some snaps with the ones at the Sam. Now you have your three most athletic linebackers on the field together. And that's what I think the overall goal has to be. And in order for them not only to bring Leo Chanel along, who I know Chiefs Kingdom is super pumped about, as they should be, but he does need the reps to get there. He does need work to get there. And I think that's a positive sign that they recognize that, and that's what their plan is to do as well.
No, I agree with you. I think that Chanel needs a lot of reps. He needs to be able to get in there. He needs to be able to get a feel for the game, get a feel for the speed. We've already talked about what he's weak at, and he has a lot of the same weaknesses in a lot of ways that Nick Bolton had last year. I think that if Chanel can get with Bolton, I think Bolton could help him get an idea of how to do the drops. And I'm not saying it's going to be the same exact thing, but it's just being able to learn your position and learn what you have the ability to do. If he can get his drops down even to where he's average to above average, that's going to be a huge boost to this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's more upside that comes with that. It's about not only being able to play your Sam role, it's about then being able to squeeze in and possibly help out as the backup. Mike, you wore a green dot for a little bit yesterday. Darius Harris got the second green dot snaps as the guy captaining the backup defense. I thought that was significant because that was a change over Jermaine Carter. Clearly, to me, it looks like there's 5 linebackers that are on this team, including right now Darius Harris, and that Jermaine Carter, Mike Rose, Jack Cochran are all on the outside looking in, and all practice squad candidates, I believe, except for Carter. Rose and Cochran certainly are.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you mentioned Carter because that was one of the guys I had on my list of needs to step up, needs to have a good game. Mm-hmm. And while he played okay, him being behind Darius Harris says a lot. Now, whether or not that changes and he's able to take a step forward in game 3, or they were just trying to flip it and see, they gave him game 2 or, second string snaps in game 1. Now they're going to flip it and go game 2 the other direction. We'll have to see how that shakes out. But Carter is kind of on the outside looking in right now. If Harris is going to get those snaps, you would have to think that means he's probably in line for that role. And you're right. I think they only keep 5 linebackers. Another guy that I had my eye on was Khalen Saunders, and Saunders played a heck of a game. He got after the QB. He did things that we haven't seen him do consistently against the Commanders. And yes, he was doing it against, second and third stringers. So say what you want about that.
Yeah.
But a guy that is really pressing for a roster spot in Saunders, because if they're keeping Shelton, I just can't see Saunders being on this roster. I can't see them keeping 5 DTs.
Oh, I do. They have to at this point. It's done. If they keep Shelton, that's great. But Saunders is on this roster because if Chris Jones has to miss any time, you cannot go in with the only pass rushing defensive tackle being Turk Wharton. You have to have a second. And that's what Saunders showed this weekend in particular. He has to be on this roster. The question to me is Danny Shelton enough to make it?
No, I don't disagree with you. But going into this week, I wasn't sold on Saunders. That's my point. I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it because he hadn't shown what he showed in this game. So with what he did in this game, I think he has to make the roster. I agree with you there. The question is are they going to be able to keep Shelton? Do they want to keep Shelton? I mean,
Yeah.
Shelton gives them a guy that can step in and be, take over for Noddy and be that run stuffer and be somebody that they can use in short yardage and goal line situations, which would be huge.
Yes.
I just don't know if they're going to have the space to keep 5.
I think it's almost an imperative at this point. I could be wrong, but I think that solidifies and allows you to have the outside guys that you need without having to ask them to come in and get beat up on the inside. Because Frank can do it. George can do it. I don't think you want them to. And I think George showed enough. And a play that I'm going to break down in detail tomorrow on the RGR channel. I think he's showed enough progress that you have to protect that and you have to allow him to play end rather than trying to move him inside like maybe we heard about a couple of weeks ago. My only problem is Shelton. They're still peppering him up, right? Like he's not ready to take on full snap load. He only played 7 snaps, and that was by design. But he looked good taking on doubles. He was immovable as always. He played with pretty high pad level, and his pursuit down the line of scrimmage was okay. But you can very much tell that he's not in ball shape. So the question to me becomes: is he getting there, or is he this product at this point, and that's all that you have? Because I think it's a very thin line of whether they can use that successfully or not and justify the roster spot.
Well, and the other question I have when it comes to Shelton is he a guy that maybe they don't have on the roster week 1 and they bring him back week 2 because then his roster, his money is not guaranteed. If he's on the roster week 1, his money is guaranteed the entire season,
right?
Because he's a veteran. But if he's not on the roster week 1 and he comes back week 2 as an addition at that point, then maybe it's a situation where you have him as long as he's healthy and he's able to do something. I don't know which it is with Shelton because you're right. He didn't get enough snaps to really know where he is. He did play high and he's not in game shape. We already knew that. It's going to be hard to be in game. It's going to be hard to be in game shape with as few snaps or with as few practices as he's been in with Kansas City at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. The backside of this is that I think folks liked what Stallworth did against the 3s and 4s, but that ain't getting it done. Stallworth can't make this roster. If he does, they're in trouble. I don't think he's practice squad eligible. I think Dickerson is, and I like Dickerson's game. I think he's got upside still, and I'd like to see him make the practice squad. I think Malik Herring has certainly justified himself going in front of Josh Kando. I think Josh Kando is a practice squad candidate at this point. And with Mike Dana, Frank Clark, George Karlaftis, and Dunlop, it does fall to like Malik Herring might be the 5 on this defensive end group, and that may be the way that it falls out as well.
Yeah, and if you're keeping 5 there, you can't keep 5 DTs, I don't think. So, I mean, it's just you're going to run into a numbers game, and that's where it's going to get tricky. If they don't keep Blake Bell, maybe they're able to keep 5 DTs and 5 defensive ends. I just don't know. The other thing with Bell is if he's not able to play in the 3rd preseason game, is it something where they keep him on the roster and cut him and put him on IR? And he's one of their IR people that they can bring back after a couple of weeks. Is that a possibility? I don't know how long he's going to be out. We haven't heard anything at this point. So still questions there. I want to flip it back over to the other side of the ball. I know we talked a lot about offense early on. The positions we didn't talk about, though, offensive tackle, really curious to see how that's going to shake out because you didn't see Roderick Johnson get a lot of snaps in this game.
There is no offensive tackle situation. There's Andrew Weil and there's Orlando Brown. There are no other tackles on this dang roster, I'm telling you. The swing tackle is playing for someone else this week. We're going to have to see what comes from cutdowns because none of these guys are up to the task. If any of the backup tackles have to play this season, Patrick Mahomes is scrambling for his life.
Yeah, and that's a problem. And that's the big question is who you're going to go get for your swing tackle position at this point.
Yeah, and more power to you, Brett. Tim Terry, I know you got your hands, your work cut out for you. Your hands are full. Good Lord, finding somebody right now is going to be tough. But, folks, they're cutting down to 80. That means 5 more selections this week and then to the 53 next week.
I just want to say real quick, I was looking it up as you were talking. Practice squad eligibility this year is the same as it was in 2021. So unlimited season is available for the last 6 spots.
Okay.
So you can't have veterans still on your practice squad. So just to point of clarity on that.
So in that point, then Stallworth would be eligible. So
right.
Okay.
Stallworth would be eligible. Technically, Danny Shelton would be eligible. I mean, there's lots of guys on this roster that, anybody that's a veteran at that point can be eligible at that point.
Okay.
So, and I love that they brought that back because I think that's so valuable for the NFL and for them to grow and to have a better product going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And for guys like Matt Moore, who did it for a little bit, like it's a transition. If you're at the end of the career and you can't make a roster, but you can be a reserve at that point. I mean, is that worth doing? Is that transitioning to your after ball life? It could be. I think that helps some guys too. So more power to them. That's where we stand today. We'll know more on Tuesday, but we're going to have some more in-depth look at how this team can tweak itself coming up tomorrow. Matt Derek will be back on Wednesday. We have a lot coming for you as we approach the regular season. Make sure that you like, sub, and hit the bell on YouTube. Make sure that you're subscribed on Spotify and the audio platforms like Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed this game and this weekend. We'll be back with you tomorrow.